to be a guard at the Baltimore City Jail.
She went in with pure intention. Jennifer thought she could be that positive in a very bleak system.
But when she meets a captivating drug lord, the promise of easy money makes her easy prey.
She went looking for love in all the wrong places.
He lured her in emotionally, and he totally pleased her physically, and she was hooked.
And later in Ridgeland, Mississippi, high school senior Kanisa Rush knows the value of hard work.
She was a scholar athlete. The sky was the limit for her.
But the love of a charming man makes her forget her sense of right and wrong.
Her passenger door opens, and he pulls out a gun and says, "Drive."
Kanisa did seem like a good kid up until the point where she met Antonio.
Maryland girl Jennifer Owens has lived in Baltimore County all her life, spending some of that time in the hamlet of Randallstown.
Randallstown was a mostly black community, mostly people looking to escape the ravages of the city.
All through her formative years, she is brought up to believe that service to others is paramount. While living with her parents, she is a doting daughter, always lending a helping hand, and her benevolent qualities extend outside the home.
She definitely had a soft spot for helping people. I think she wanted to make a difference in her community.
With her caring nature, it comes as no surprise when the high school graduate is certified as a nurse's aide. She gets a position at a local hospital and delights in helping her patients recover from their sicknesses.
She was very nurturing, very caring, and very compassionate, sometimes maybe a little too compassionate.
Jennifer's work life seems to be in perfect order, and her love life is also riding high. She meets her match in Jason Spells, and the two move in together.
They were planning on getting married, they were building a future together, and she was happy.
But for the next few years, she finds herself unable to ignore the troubles plaguing neighboring Baltimore.
She wanted to help the young people that were caught up in the criminal justice system. I think she had a compassionate side for a lot of the black men that were incarcerated.
When she learns of a job opening at the Baltimore City Jail, she quickly jumps at the chance to apply.
The Baltimore City Jail was designed as a temporary holding facility, as a detention center for people who were awaiting trial.
You had drug dealers, you had murderers, you had rapists, you had robbers.
By being a corrections officer, she felt that this was a way to give back to her community.
With her clean record, Jennifer is hired as a corrections officer and is immediately put to work. But right away, she realizes the CO job is tougher than she'd planned for.
If you're a female guard and you have to watch over male inmates, you can imagine all types of sexual harassment, in addition to the regular harassment that you would get as a corrections officer as well.
She definitely needed thick skin and nerves of steel because it's a predatory environment, and that's what they do.
2 years into her time at the Baltimore City Jail, it becomes a hard life on both sides of the barbed wire. Jennifer finds out her boyfriend, Jason's been unfaithful.
Do you love her? It just seemed like everything started to unravel. She wasn't as focused as she normally was. She didn't have that sparkle in her eyes. Her uniform was a little disheveled, and it just wasn't the same Jennifer that I knew.
She was struggling to forgive the man who wronged her. And I believe this truly left her feeling very hurt and very vulnerable.
While she tries to keep her troubles to herself, word gets around the jail that her relationship is failing.
I just had to stop and tell you how beautiful you was.
Both guards and inmates get to talking, and one particular inmate takes special notice. Tavon White.
Feel like you deserve to hit up?
Tavon White was 32 years old, born and raised in Baltimore. He was a career criminal who had spent a lot of his life in jails.
Tavon is also a member of the notorious prison gang, the Black Guerrilla Family.
The Black Guerrilla Family, or BGF, has become the most dominant gang in the prison system in Maryland and the most dangerous threat we have on the streets.
Most of their operations were funded by drug trafficking. The Black Guerrilla Family had logistics and operations that would make most Fortune 500 companies jealous.
Tavon White got involved in a turf dispute with another drug dealer. He attempted to murder that drug dealer, so that's how he ended up at the Baltimore City Jail.
He convinced the BGF leadership to make him commander in the jail, where he's in charge of the gang's lucrative contraband business.
The other inmates were afraid of Tavon, and that was critical to his control within the jail.
He instills fear in the other inmates, but when it comes to the female officers, he takes a different approach.
And I like the way you feel that uniform on, too.
He was charismatic, mild-mannered, very respectful, very polite.
He was able to gain influence over the female correctional officers, in part through his charm.
Tavon uses that charm to target Jennifer while she's down on her luck in love.
When she was placed on his section, he already knew about it. He knew exactly how he wanted to approach it. He wanted to build her up where she had been torn down. Before you know it, they developed a rapport. Then she started feeling good about herself. She started feeling good about him.
The pair repeats the routine each day, and Jennifer soon finds herself sharing details of her personal life with Tavon, including that she has just ended her relationship with Jason.
The jail was short-staffed, so that left her alone for an inordinate amount of time with Tavon. I believe that put her at risk for being manipulated.
But Jennifer is about to blur the lines between guard and inmate. And her close ties to Tavon will upset the delicate balance of power at the jail, with catastrophic results.
If anyone or anything got in their way, they wouldn't hesitate to remove it violently or by any other means necessary.
Jennifer was willing to risk her job and risk her freedom to do what Tavon wanted her to do.
Help me!
Baltimore City Jail Corrections Officer Jennifer Owens is getting hooked on charismatic inmate Tavon White's charms. The two are quickly becoming an item, spending hours talking about Jennifer's recent breakup with her boyfriend, Jason.
One of the main reasons that she opened up, because the jail was so violent, so vicious. To see a friendly face, to see a protector, you kind of fall in love with something like that.
While he's running the violent prison gang, the BGF, Tavon's happy to be a shoulder for her to cry on. And once he gets close, he makes his move.
One day, Tavon kissed Jennifer, and she doesn't refuse it. She accepted it.
Jennifer was at a very low point in her life. Her self-esteem was crushed. And here you had this individual, Tavon, who was a smooth talker.
It feels crazy to her, but she is swept off her feet. It doesn't take long before full-on romance blossoms, and they kick it into high gear.
Then they started having sex all over the jail. It's all kind of nooks and crannies. Tavon had other BGF members keep the lookout for him.
Jennifer reported to her friends that the sex she had with Tavon was the best that she ever had. And it's quite possible that he used that as a manipulation.
She's putty in Tavon's hands. And now that she's fully available to him, he starts asking for favors.
And he hit her with the business proposals where, okay, you like me, you like my sex, now I'm gonna give you the opportunity to make some big money.
First, he requests a cell phone. Then he ups the ante with riskier contraband. With the rampant drug use at the jail, Tavon and the BGF feed the beast by supplying everything the addicts need, from marijuana to prescription pills. Now Jennifer is getting in on the action.
It was easy for her to say, yes, I'll get the drugs into the jail for you.
She did it in her underwear, in her body cavity, because they just frisk search you when you're coming in.
For her efforts, she is rewarded with passionate sex, thousands of dollars in her pocket, and Tavon allows her to drive the luxury cars bought with drug money that he was forced to leave behind when he was incarcerated.
Tavon seduced Jennifer. He seduced her with love, and he seduced her with money.
Things only grow more serious between the couple when a few months later, Jennifer finds a way to give back to her man. She breaks the news that she's pregnant with his baby.
This actually confirmed their future. So she was that much more committed to supporting him until he beat his attempted murder charge and got on the street, and they were going to have a successful life.
Later that year, she gives birth to their baby.
Now that Tavon went from just an undercover lover to actually being the father of her child, now that raised the stakes. She would have done anything to make sure that this father of her child was successful in his business.
But his regular trysts with Jennifer are no longer enough to satisfy him. He uses his sexual charms to recruit 3 other female guards.
Well, the more correctional officers Tavon could convince to carry drugs for him, the more money he could make. So it was in Tavon's interest to persuade as many women as possible to work for him.
Before they know it, male and female officers alike are involved in the operation. Tavon sits back and rakes in the dough.
He was making $16,000 a month in contraband sales. And there was one moment where he was bragging about only making $15,800, and he called that a slow month.
At first, Jennifer and the other ladies don't know they're sharing Tavon. But when they catch wind of his conniving ways, they explode.
That's none of your business.
No, it is my business, because that's my man.
All hell broke loose. There were fights, there were arguments. It just got real messy.
But messy doesn't even begin to describe the compromising condition Tavon has put them all in.
They were not only carrying drugs for Tavon, they were also carrying Tavon's children.
But despite his cheating ways, Jennifer can't bear to part with her lover. Especially when she learns she's carrying his second baby.
In her heart, she knew that she was #1, she was special.
Like it or not, all 4 women are part of Tavon's harem. But when Jennifer finds out that she's merely a pawn in the BGF drug empire,
He started boasting that he runs this jail and nothing gets done without his say-so.
it'll all come crashing down in one of the most salacious scandals in Maryland history.
She was in too deep. Her life would never be the same again.
And later, in Ridgeland, Mississippi, 22-year-old Kanisa Rush will also learn that heeding a bad boy's smooth words will make her hurt those closest to her.
A gun was never part of the plan. And he pulls a gun and he points it at her and makes her drive to a hotel. She's very much in danger.
Her love for Antonio ruled on.
Maryland Corrections Officer Jennifer Owens is about to give birth to inmate Tavon White's second child, but she's not the only one. 3 other female guards are also pregnant with Tavon's babies.
Jennifer started finding out about these other women. So what was happy turned to bittersweet, turned to pure anger and rage.
She just flipped her lid, and instead of being angry with Tavon, was angry at these other women.
Jennifer is determined to keep her man at any cost. But little does she know, the house of cards she's built with the gang lord is about to collapse. A snitch inside the jail spills all to the FBI, and they launch an investigation. They start by tapping the phones of shady COs, which leads them to Jennifer and Tavon.
Once the FBI got a whiff of how pervasive and corrupt it was inside the Baltimore City Detention Center, it blew their mind.
Agents catch Tavon proudly declaring that he runs the jail and everyone in it.
This is my jail, you understand it? I make every final call in this jail, real and nothing go past it.
The wiretaps gave us very convincing evidence about how the gang operated. And based on the wiretaps, we knew that Tavon was the leader of the gang. We knew who was working for him.
Before my head in their mouth, guess what they do? They gotta run it through me. Before my head to my, they gotta run it through me. Real.
On a crisp spring day, hundreds of FBI agents descend on the Baltimore City Jail to round up BGF members and take them straight to the district courthouse. The crooked corrections officers are taken into custody at their homes before they report to work.
FBI, open up!
I felt disappointed when I found out that Jennifer was involved because she showed so much promise. And as a correctional sergeant, I felt betrayed. I think that she endangered other people's lives.
Jennifer and Tavon are 2 of 44 inmates, guards, and gang members charged with racketeering conspiracy, money laundering, and conspiracy to distribute drugs.
This had to have been embarrassing for Jennifer because she started with honest intentions. She wanted to help, but she wound up getting wrapped up in one of the biggest jail scandals in American history.
To add insult to injury, she learns that Tavon's ratting out all of his former associates, including her.
Tavon, at this point, showed his true colors. He decided to save himself. He turned against the BGF and the 4 women that he impregnated. And he did this in order to get a lesser sentence.
Once he was caught, Tavon turned against the other correctional officers because it was always about Tavon. Bottom line was, he didn't care about them. They provided him cover, and they provided him sex.
But his damning words aren't enough to turn Jennifer against her man.
She still showed up at Tavon's sentencing. It was a genuine love that she had developed for this man.
Jennifer and the other women plead guilty to a lesser charge of racketeering and are compelled to detail their crimes in front of a judge.
When Jennifer Owens got on the stand, she looked like she was full of regret. She looked like a beaten, scared woman that was crying out for mercy. I think the impact of what she did really weighed on her.
She is sentenced to 12 months and a day in prison. Tavon gets 12 years for his part, then 20 years for the attempted murder charge that brought him to the Baltimore City Jail in the first place. Jennifer has all her time on the other side of the jail bars to think about the consequences of falling in love with Tavon.
For some people, it's all about the love, almost to the point of where it is all-consuming, where you begin to lose a sense of right from wrong, and it will take you down that path of destruction.
Jennifer lost her job, she lost her freedom, and her ability to spend time with her children. And Jennifer had a lot to lose, and she paid a heavy price for her relationship with Tavon.
I really felt sorry for her, but at the same time, I think it was just because of what she caused in her environment.
Jennifer Owens' man took advantage of her maternal sensibility and got her locked up just like him. 900 miles away in Mississippi, Kenisa Rush also proves that for some women, love can blur the lines between right and wrong. After 5 years living in Jackson, Mississippi, Chicago native Kenisa Rush is finally feeling at home.
About early teens, her parents had a divorce, and so her mother moved her to be nearer to her grandmother. Her father stayed in Chicago.
With the love and support of plenty of strong women in her orbit, the sky is the limit.
Her mother and her grandmother stressed good values, hard work, good effort, and staying on the straight and narrow path.
While her father wasn't in the home, Kenisa did have a very strong family taking care of her. And that's what really a high school student needs in order to make it in this world.
Her star is on the rise, and there's seemingly nothing and no one that will stand in her way.
She wanted to go to Jackson State in order to maybe live at home and save some money.
But one day after school, she meets a charming man who will change her life forever. 21-year-old Antonio Wallace.
She really wasn't the type to fall head over heels for some boy. There was something about Antonio that really struck a chord with Kenisa, and they hit it off.
Romance is in the air. But soon Kenisa will learn that there is more to Antonio than meets the eye.
This was a criminal. He's got a rap sheet, and it's not just a little rap sheet, it's pretty extensive.
She lost her entire life, her job, her school, for her man.
Despite their age difference, romantic sparks fly between Jackson, Mississippi couple 17-year-old Kenisa Rush and 21-year-old Antonio Wallace. After meeting Q, the two start getting to know each other.
Kenisa was an open book to Antonio. She is telling him everything about who she is and her desires, her hopes, her dreams, what she's been through in life, and he's a little more guarded.
He's not saying much, and the mystery only makes Kenisa want to be with him more. Over the next few months, she enjoys the attention he showers on her, but he conveniently neglects to tell her some crucial facts about his history.
He was somewhat of a shady guy. He really didn't have full-time employment. He basically sat on the couch and played video games.
He's quiet and he lets her fall deeper in love with him, and then later he springs bombshells on her.
With arrests ranging from driving with a suspended license to arson, he's the definition of a bad boy. And this good girl enjoys tiptoeing on the wild side.
Her life was very, very straight. And now here's someone in Antonio who's different, who breaks the rules, who makes his own rules.
While she is intrigued by the danger of her new man's past, she doesn't let Antonio's work ethic knock her off course. In the following months, she graduates from high school.
Kenisa attained her goal. She got into Jackson State. You did it.
Oh my gosh.
She needed to take a job so that she could pay for her classes.
She lands a commission sales job at a high-end sports store at a posh mall in Ridgeland, Mississippi, just 9 miles from her home in Jackson. The overachiever has no problem juggling her schoolwork, her man, and a new job, even finding time to add colleague Bridget Joyce to her social circle.
Bridget was the assistant manager. She was responsible for counting up all the money and making deposits.
They saw each other socially with their men. Kenisa would bring Antonio along, and Bridget would bring her husband along.
Their camaraderie is necessary at the busy shop, and Kenisa's hard work pays off when she is promoted to co-manager of the store, alongside Bridget.
Things were as smooth as they could go for a young woman who's got a lot going on. Kenisa was doing well at school. She was having a good relationship with Antonio. She had just gotten this promotion at work. Things seemed to be going as planned.
Until well into their relationship when Antonio drops another bombshell. He has a child from another relationship.
He waits until they are very involved before then giving her the choice of staying or leaving, given his revelation.
While she's taken aback by the news of his love child, she listens as Antonio opens up about his baby. But his honesty is hiding his true intent. He wants financial help from Kenisa.
Antonio hadn't been paying any child support, and the mother of his child initiated a court case over it. And now there were court costs and legal fees associated with this.
But rather than putting her off, the heartfelt pleas for money work on Kenisa. She agrees to take on the tab as her own, promising to set aside some of her commission from the store to chip away at her boyfriend's debt.
I've been doing pretty well at the shop. I guess I could help pay some of these bills.
With Kenisa's father being 700 miles away and not really being in her life the way that she wanted, she was in simpatico with Antonio.
But the surprising revelations don't end there. She then learns that she and Antonio's lives will become even more intertwined in just a few short months.
She realizes that she's pregnant with Antonio's baby. So while Kenisa is very happy to be a mother, the truth of the matter is that there is a crushing financial weight pressing on her, and it's all because of Antonio.
With a baby on the way, she splits her time at home with her family and with Antonio at his brother Reginald's place. Through the pregnancy, the hard worker keeps her job and stays in school.
The only breadwinner in that household is Kenisa Rush. She's paying for Antonio's mistakes.
And after she gives birth to their little girl later that year, she gets right back to the grind, shelling out her hard-earned money left and right.
Kenisa, who is not buying trips to exotic places, she is feeding and clothing her daughter, keeping her baby in daycare. She is paying tuition at Jackson State. She is paying for Antonio's car. She's paying Antonio's lawyer as much as she can at a time.
In turn, he swears that once those debts are settled, he's ready to be on the straight and narrow.
Kenisa was very invested in helping Antonio doing better in life. If he did better, then that would benefit her and the baby.
Thankfully, business is booming at the store where she works, and the holiday shopping season brings a fat commission check her way. When Black Friday rolls around, tag team duo Kenisa and Bridget are both scheduled to work during the busiest weekend of the year.
This was a team that worked very well together. The store liked them working together because they were so good at it.
When they finally make it to Saturday evening, they count just over $7,600 in cash earnings. The two rejoice over a job well done.
We did so good. So good. Yes.
When she gets home, Antonio is there to greet her.
Antonio asked her how her day was, and she made the comment, "Oh, we made a lot of money, and I'm gonna have a really good commission check."
And that wasn't even in the credit card transaction. It was all cash.
The cash register dings in his mind as his imagination runs wild. He never realized Kenisa had direct access to that much money, let alone 7.5 G's in cash.
Bridget, the girl that works with you?
Yep.
She thinks she's sharing with her man, "Oh, baby, I have worked so hard. I am doing good things." He's hearing, "There's all this money, and it's out there."
Kenisa sits quietly as Antonio goes on about how simple it would be to rob Bridget when she leaves to deposit the store's cash haul the following Monday.
Kenisa is horrified at this. How are you going to offer to rob her girlfriend, for real? But Antonio's protests are, she's not going to get hurt. Nobody's going to know it was us.
But Antonio isn't done making requests of his lady love. He'll soon ask her to turn her back on her good girl image once and for all.
She didn't have to be talked into it too hard. Greed got the better of her.
Because she trusted this man that she loved, she put it all on the line.
Mississippi mom Kenisa Rush is drowning in a sea of debt, helping her boyfriend and baby daddy, Antonio Wallace, pay his legal bills and support their family. And when he comes up with a plan to rob her good friend and coworker of $7,600, she considers the proposition.
It seemed like an easy way to take care of their financial problems. He promised her nobody was going to get hurt.
She agrees to help her man once more. But he conveniently finds a way to mastermind the scheme from the sidelines.
Antonio couldn't be present at the scene because Bridget would have recognized him.
Over the weekend, he recruits his brother Reginald and cousin DeMarcus. Each of these men have seen the inside of a jail cell more than once.
Reginald has a rap sheet, much like his brothers. There's some armed robbery, there's some marijuana possession, amongst other things.
If you look at DeMarcus and you look at his record, it's a violent criminal history. He's a habitual offender. He's got carjacking, he's got armed robbery. He has all sorts of crimes that he's been arrested for.
The men spend the rest of the weekend hatching the perfect plan with Kenisa at its core. That Monday, her next shift rolls around and she arrives at work just before 1 p.m. She nervously enters the store and quickly says hello to Bridget.
Bridget is actually standing there recounting the money in the bags and bagging it up, getting it ready to make the deposit, because she usually takes it on her lunch break. And she was just verifying that all the money was there and was getting ready to go.
10 minutes later, Kenisa sends a simple text to Antonio that sets the whole plan in motion.
Antonio then has to turn around and text his brother, Reginald, who is sitting in the parking lot waiting on her.
Bridget gathers her purse, she gets the deposit bags, asks if anybody needs anything. Do you need any lunch? Can I pick you all up anything? And then she leaves.
In the parking lot, she has no idea that Reginald and DeMarcus are laying in wait in a silver car parked next to hers. As she is settling into her seat, DeMarcus approaches her car and opens the passenger door.
And a small frame black male sits down, shuts the car door. He pulls out a gun and says, "Drive."
He demands that she drive to a nearby hotel. Bridget can't even react. She doesn't want any trouble. She's terrified for her life. She complies.
Reginald trails closely behind. With that, the stakes skyrocket. What was supposed to be a simple money grab has now morphed into an armed robbery and kidnapping. Her knuckles turn white as she grips the steering wheel and silently prays that all the man wants is the money in her purse.
She was very distraught. She didn't know what was going to happen to her.
What could they possibly want with her? Was it more than the money? Would she be physically, sexually assaulted? Would she be murdered?
He takes the sleeves up over both hands so he's not leaving any prints. He grabs Bridget's purse and starts going through her purse.
As they pull into the hotel parking lot, DeMarcus grabs her cell phone, the 3 deposit bags, and her car keys, then levels the gun at her.
What Bridget was feeling at this point is every person's worst nightmare. This is all just spiraling out of control right about now.
He then snatches her driver's license and makes an eerie threat.
You can call the police all you want, but I know where you live and I'll come get you.
With that, DeMarcus jumps out of Bridget's car, sprints to the waiting getaway car, and they peel out of the parking lot.
Bridget is just paralyzed with fear. So it takes her just a minute so that she can compose herself, and then she gets out of her car.
She stumbles to the hotel lobby to call police.
911, where's your emergency?
I was walking to get in my car to go to the bank with our deposit, and he jumped in the car with me.
Was he armed?
Yeah, he pulled a gun on me.
Okay.
He took my license and said it was insurance for if I told him like who he was.
I'm gonna get help to you as fast as I can.
When the officers arrive at the hotel, there's Bridget. She's visibly upset. She's crying, she's shaking.
Though she's trembling like a leaf, she's able to describe the perp as a short African-American man wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt.
The police, of course, used that information, but they were hopeful that pulling the security footage from the hotel would give them a picture.
Unfortunately, all they get is a blurry image of the thief. Without much to go on, investigators head to the sporting goods store to talk to Bridget's co-workers, including Kanisa, about what they might have witnessed.
The co-workers, none of them had seen anything. Even Kanisa's written statement was that, I've seen nothing unusual, nothing out of the ordinary. I don't know anything.
This is the first she's hearing about the kidnapping, and for the rest of her shift, she tries her best to hide her shock and her role in the crime. And she has good reason to be afraid.
From the beginning, this felt like an inside job.
And it's only a matter of time before Bridget's attacker is brought to light.
She instantly looks at the picture and says, that's your man, that's who kidnapped me.
And when they track him down, all Kanisa has worked for will hang in the balance.
She allowed him to manipulate her and do things that are contrary to every other action she's had in her life.
When Kanisa Rush agrees to help her man and his boys rob her friend Bridget in a Ridgeland, Mississippi parking lot, she has no idea the stick-up would devolve into a kidnapping.
Antonio promised her it was going to be a simple purse snatching, but it turned into a carjacking, a kidnapping, guns. Someone could have been killed. That was not what was bargained for.
Back at home base, the men count the stolen loot.
Once the deal is done, all the guys split the money, and they had about $7,600 to split.
But when Kanisa finishes her shift, she can't shake that the simple robbery turned into so much more.
The police were asking me questions.
Kanisa's nervous now. How did this go so horribly? Antonio reassured her and he told her, oh, there's no way they're going to connect anything. Don't worry, just relax. It's over, it's done.
She exhales, hoping that Antonio will keep her safe.
Kanisa was not involved in a life of crime, so Antonio perhaps had the experience to be able to stay calm in the face of all of this criminal activity going on, and him being calm kept her calm.
Meanwhile, the police investigation moves forward.
We released the surveillance video to the media, requesting any assistance from the public.
It turns out to be the right move. Nearly 2 weeks after the stick-up, lead detective Adrian Reddy gets the call he's been hoping for.
I speak with the subject on the phone, said that the suspect in the video is a DeMarcus Timmons. We were able to go back through our ID files, and we had a DeMarcus Timmons that we had arrested previously, and he fit the size and the profile.
Investigators hit the ground running, and that same day they create a photo lineup with the suspect's picture to show to Bridget.
Bridget came in, and we showed her the lineup, and she immediately pointed out DeMarcus.
Still confident it's an inside job, detectives scan the social media accounts of Bridget's co-workers and find a suspicious post on Kanisa's timeline.
We had found where DeMarcus was actually trying to sell the phone that he had just stolen from Bridget on a social media account that was linked to Kanisa Rush.
That's not even a red flag. That's a flare gun right there.
When police talk with her a second time, she innocently says she doesn't really know DeMarcus. He's just a former classmate she has a vague connection with on social media.
I had nothing to do with it.
She's so confident about her story that she lets detectives look at her smartphone, and what they find is astonishing.
Go back to the date of the robbery. There is a text message that she sends to Antonio, and it says she's about to leave. Okay, we know at this point, we've got all we pretty much need for her.
Kanisa has just handed detectives all they need to tie her to the kidnapping.
Kanisa may have still been in shock with everything that happened, so she wasn't thinking about what text messages may have been there. So she just handed it over to the cops, and that proved to be a very big mistake for her and Antonio.
She quickly backtracks, saying the text was about something completely unrelated. And she repeatedly denies knowing anything about the crime. But investigators don't let up.
If everything keeps pointing towards you the way it is, and Antonio, then all I'm gonna have to do is lay all this out in front of the judge and the jury.
3 hours later, for fear of losing everything, Kanisa finally breaks down and admits to her role in the robbery and throws her man under the bus.
This was all Antonio's plan. She didn't want anything to do with it. She just agreed to let everybody know when Bridget was leaving the store. That's all she had to do with it.
Kanisa knew that the jig was up at this point, and she would lose a huge chunk of time in being with and raising her daughter. And for her, that was not acceptable. It was not okay.
She also confirms DeMarcus was the gunman. And it doesn't take long for police to connect his cousin, Reginald. Kanisa Rush, Antonio Wallace, DeMarcus Timmons, and Reginald Wallace are all arrested for their parts in the robbery. 8 months later, Kanisa pleads guilty to armed robbery and kidnapping and receives a crushing 20-year prison sentence. Thankfully, because of her cooperation in the investigation, 13 years of her sentence are suspended. Her love, Antonio, denies the same charges. But a jury disagrees, and he's sentenced to 34 years behind bars. Reginald and DeMarcus plead guilty and receive 30 and 32-year sentences, respectively. By testifying, Kanisa was doing all she could to make up for the terrifying ordeal she put her friend Bridget through.
When I met with Kanisa to prepare her testimony, she said, "How is Bridget doing?" And I sat down and I said, "She's broken up. This really affected her. Bridget considered you her friend." And Kanisa broke down and started crying. I think she was disgusted with herself.
She now knows a woman can't change a man just because she loves him.
Now that Kanisa looks at her life, she realizes that she lost that straight and narrow path that she was walking, and things had descended to the point of complete and total destruction.
Like most good girls, they think they want the bad boy, and whenever they get that, they become that.
Family first. It's a noble goal.
They are all into each other. The love is something special.
But what happens when you're stuck between the family you're born into and the one you create?
They isolated themselves and actually became more enmeshed with each other.
Does blood truly run thicker than water? Or can the allure of romantic love ultimately wash all those lifelong loyalties away?
He's under a tremendous amount of pressure now to take care of all of them. They are now a family of 6. Hard to do when you're underemployed.
She sought to have those children live with their biological father, and she didn't like that.
She allegedly asked, does she know any shooters who can take her out?
September 11th, 2017, Detroit, Michigan. It's just before dawn on a Monday morning in America's Motor City.
Detroit is a city of hustle and bustle. Yes, we have blight, yes, we have crime, but I see Detroit as a movement.
You know, you always have that small element of crime, and I don't think that any city can get away from that.
For Detroit police, the day is already off to an urgent start when an emergency call comes in from the city's west side at 6:30 a.m. The caller is a local resident named Walter Knight. He's calling about Tiffany Hunter, the mother of his child.
Tiffany and Walter had a very close relationship, even though they were no longer in a dating relationship.
Walter tells the dispatcher he had grown worried about Tiffany in the middle of the night and decided to check on her.
Walter heard nothing from Tiffany, and he became concerned. He called continually, and there was no response. Walter went to Tiffany's home.
He has a key to the house. He owns the house.
As Walter searched the house for Tiffany, he became more and more uneasy. Something was wrong.
When he walks in, then he finds her lying in a pool of blood.
It was very traumatic. It was blood everywhere. It seemed that she had been brutally assaulted.
Walter tells police to send help fast, so they dispatch officers to Walter's location right away.
When emergency crews arrived, they told him the news that he never thought he would hear. Tiffany was dead. What happened to Tiffany? Who would do this?
41-year-old Tiffany Hunter was a beloved member of her community, known for her lively personality and endless creativity.
She was a mother and a wife and was trying to start her own business. Tiffany wanted to be her ear, nose, and throat specialist.
But the road to opportunity hadn't always been so clear for Tiffany. Growing up in Mobile, Alabama, she faced her share of challenges after an unplanned pregnancy at just 15 years old.
You can handicap yourself by having children early. It doesn't mean that's the end of the story. It just makes things very difficult for you to get past or overcome those circumstances. That was the situation that Tiffany found herself in.
To support her daughter, Amber, Tiffany had to forego college for a job in retail. But over the years, she learned to make the best of it.
Despite some obstacles, she became a manager, a leader, and she also had more kids following her first child.
Tiffany had never been really lucky in love. Both of her children's fathers had not stuck around, and she was left to fend for herself.
She put all of her energy into her kids. They were her world. She didn't have anyone else.
She was especially close to the oldest, Amber. As such a young mom, they practically grew up together. Still, the desire to complete her college degree was always there for Tiffany. Shortly before her 30th birthday, she decided to go for it and moved her family to Detroit. Soon after landing in her new city, Tiffany thought she'd found love in Walter Knight.
Eventually, the relationship blossomed, which led to the birth of her third child, another daughter.
But her romance with Walter was ultimately short-lived.
For whatever reason, their relationship didn't exactly work out, but Walter still had the wherewithal to look out for Tiffany, making sure that the mother of his child and his child still had a place to live.
Walter owned the house that Tiffany and her kids were living in. So Walter was still in Tiffany's life. Tiffany tried her best to get back into the dating world and even had one more child, Martha. But with all of her energy going into her 4 kids, there was rarely time for anything else.
This was only compounded when Tiffany's daughter Amber started a family of her own. Now she have not only her own kids, but Amber and her boyfriend's children living there too.
By the fall of 2017, however, Tiffany's load was starting to get lighter. Amber and her boyfriend had moved out and gotten a place of their own, and the rest of Tiffany's children were all teenagers or older. They didn't need as much attention from her anymore. For the first time in forever, Tiffany was finally able to focus on herself.
She had just completed her bachelor's degree, Mary Grove College, and she was going back for her master's.
She also just started dating a new guy named Noah.
Tiffany saw Noah as a strong presence and looked at him as a protector. She was just starting to feel out where the relationship could go, but she was really attracted to him.
Here Tiffany is in her second act. She's in her prime. She's flourishing.
But now, the beloved mother and grandmother has been found on the floor of her dining room, lying in a pool of blood. And her ex-boyfriend, Walter, is a total wreck.
The officers at that point, they secure the scene as best that they can. They start to make notifications. One of those notifications is to homicide. I get there, I go to where my partner was, and I can see the victim on the floor. She was laying on top of a pillow.
When they looked at the condition of Tiffany's body, they also realized that she was stabbed multiple times, almost 70 times. Who takes the time to stab someone and then put a pillow beneath their head?
My mindset was like, this is a rage thing, to stab a person. In my opinion, once or twice, okay, I didn't mean to do it. I kind of lost control of myself. But anything over 10 is suggesting that you are very angry and that you really want this to hurt this person.
It was very emotional. It was very intentional. This was a very personal murder. Who would do this? Why?
41-year-old Tiffany Hunter had moved to Detroit to fulfill her dreams.
She managed to raise her children, and then she attempted to start or do a restart of her life and going back to school.
But now, her ex-boyfriend, Walter Knight, has walked into a nightmare. And Detroit police have no doubt they are working with a homicide.
She was a very well-respected person in her community and at work. So to see that happen to a person like that, it's like, why? Why does that take place?
She was stabbed in the face and in the head. It looks like they had to be from a knife. They also noticed that there's some blunt force trauma to the back of her head from a hammer or some other blunt force instrument.
Your mindset is, who has access to do this? We know nobody broke in on her because the door wasn't kicked. You can, see a little bit of disarray in the house. Blood stain on the floor, blood stains in the kitchen.
There in the kitchen, police find a promising piece of evidence.
We couldn't find a murder weapon, but we did find a lot of blood, as if somebody was trying to maybe wash it off. It was blood on the handles, the faucet. It was blood up underneath the sink on cleaning products and stuff like that. We swabbed blood. We took a lot of samples that we thought DNA was on.
A lot of times when you have a stabbing victim, the killer ends up cutting himself in the process. So it is possible that this blood could be more than just the victim's DNA. It could also be the killer's.
But it takes a while for that information to come back, the DNA testing to be done.
In the meantime, investigators build their potential suspect list.
There was no signs of forced entry in the home. This wasn't an armed robbery. It wasn't a robbery gone bad. It was someone that she knew and someone who was very, very upset with her.
The only person at that time who had access, the ability to get in, was Walter. He had a key to the house, which he owns, by the way. And it was easy to look at that and say, we need to take a deep dive into this person.
Police start out by asking Walter about the last time he saw Tiffany. Walter says Tiffany had come over for dinner at his place Saturday night. The evening went late, so he offered to let her stay in his guest room.
Walter cares about Tiffany. He didn't want her leaving his house at an odd time of night, so she stayed the night. And then the next day, they were supposed to go to their respective churches.
On Sunday morning, Tiffany left his house as planned. Walter says he had no idea it was the last time he would ever speak to her.
This is a very good friend, a former lover, former girlfriend, and the mother of his child, where he knew something wasn't right.
Unable to sleep, Walter says he got up around 4 a.m. Monday morning and headed for Tiffany's house. But it's this detail that brings more questions for police.
Walter had to be very, very concerned to go there at 4 o'clock in the morning. Why not wait till a decent hour in the morning?
He's telling police that he woke up around 4 a.m. worried, but he didn't call police until about 6:30 a.m. that morning. So what was he doing all of that time?
Apparently his car breaks down, so he borrows his mother's car to get over there.
After that happened, he makes it to the house, uses his key to get in, and then he discovers her deceased.
The fact that she had spent the night with him the night before is a little suspect, and that you don't call the police to do a well-being check. You go check on her yourself, but at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we already know that there's no signs of forced entry there.
Walter is telling police that Tiffany's children are all spread out these days, and she doesn't see them that much. So the odds of one of them being the ones that entered into the house was unlikely.
Their suspicion towards Walter only increases when he asks them who he thinks could be responsible for Tiffany's murder. That's when the grieving ex-boyfriend suddenly shuts down.
Walter not speaking to the police is actually a code of conduct in the streets, especially in the Detroit community.
Police know they aren't making any more leeway with Walter until he gets some rest.
He's tired, he's emotional, but so far police are not able to uncover anything that would prove that he's guilty. With almost 70 stab wounds, you would think that there would be like a speck of blood or something that he forgot to clean up. So the police had no choice but to let him go.
By now, the sun is starting to rise over the city, and residents of Tiffany's tight-knit community are beginning to wonder what's going on.
It was a decent neighborhood, very walkable. It was one of those neighborhoods where you can get out with your dog and your family.
Investigators start to canvass the neighborhood. Did anyone see anything? Did anyone hear anything?
The first thing we're looking for is who has a doorbell cam, who has surveillance on the outside, security cameras on the outside, but there were none. On the morning of September 10th, her neighbor described hearing screams from the house and then looking out of the window, but didn't see anything crazy, no cars speeding off, nothing that stood out to her as unusual other than hearing those screams. But she had the wherewithal to text Tiffany to say, hey, are you okay? She didn't receive a response, and it just kind of dissipated from there.
Police began to ask about coming and going of other people who've come to the house, and the neighbors able to give some information to the police about someone that Tiffany had been dating, a person by the name of Noah.
After finding the body of 41-year-old Tiffany Hunter stabbed to death, Detroit police have been on the hunt for a suspect.
Her daughter Amber was busy with a family of her own, and her other kids were grown. Tiffany was starting a new chapter in her life, and it made it hard to track down those new people that were in her life.
Now, a neighbor of Tiffany's has brought a new person of interest to light. Her boyfriend, Noah Harmon.
There were rumors that Noah was physically abusive towards Tiffany. She was spending time with men in her life like Walter to help create distance from Noah so that she could feel safe.
When you get a person on your radar, or when a person of interest comes into the scene, we do a full workup on him. You know, we want to know what his criminal history was, if he was capable of doing this thing.
And that caused the police to look even deeper into Noah.
Eager to know more about Tiffany's latest love interest, police bring Noah Harmon in for an interview.
He came on his own free will. He was very emotional. We have this thing in the police department. The person who fighting for his life, The person that's telling me stuff that I didn't even ask about, that happened 2 months and 2 years ago, yeah, he probably the person that's innocent. Noah was that guy.
Until the conversation starts to turn and it looks like now you're treating me or talking to me like I'm a suspect, and then he becomes defensive. I had nothing to do with the death of Tiffany.
Eventually, Noah insists he's done talking. So police turn to another popular investigative tool, the polygraph.
Now, what's interesting about this is that Noah actually fails this test. But it's important to note that failing a polygraph test is not indicative of guilt.
A lot of times the police would get a person to take a polygraph test, and if they fail it, then they confront them with it, and then ultimately, with a little more prodding, they come out with what the truth is. Well, Noah still held fast to his story that he had nothing to do with the death of Tiffany. He very convincingly was telling the police, look, I failed the polygraph test, but take my DNA.
Police agreed to take a sample of Noah's DNA and send it off for testing.
Forensics, on a case like this, or in most cases now, technology is your friend, right? So we were able to get his phone based on his information, where he was, who he was with. It was clearly obvious that he was not there.
There is one man police know was at the scene, Walter Knight. And as more time goes by, investigators keep coming back to the likely killer being one of these two men.
That's what we were doing. We were weighing it. Who's cooperating and who's not? Who's being elusive and who's telling the truth?
Walter said he had nothing to do with it, and even though we have him coming to our house at 4 o'clock in the morning with a key, but she's in a relationship with someone else. So it kind of brings everybody into the fold. Somebody's not telling the truth here as to what happened. One of these guys looks like they are the responsible one.
Police decide to bring both men back in for a follow-up interview. When they sit down with Noah, he once again seems willing to cooperate with police.
Noah did not pass his polygraph test, but he was compliant with the investigation. Noah was very forthcoming and wanted to engage with the investigators to be able to help solve this murder.
While the subject of his relationship with Tiffany had been difficult for Noah to discuss, when talk turns to her ex-boyfriend, Walter, Noah doesn't hold back.
Noah identified that Walter and Tiffany had also had a history of conflict.
We have to dig a little deeper to see what's actually going on here. In doing so, we find out that the relationship with Walter and Tiffany wasn't all that great either.
Noah was able to identify it to the police that there was ongoing conflict and even violence that occurred throughout their relationship. So she decided to take out a protection order.
But an unforeseen twist in the case left everyone questioning the truth. Detroit homicide detectives are taking a closer look at two men that were in Tiffany Hunter's life at the time of her murder. But so far, it's been hard to build a case against her boyfriend, Noah Harmon.
Yeah, he had a checkered past, but did he have the means to do this? And does his checkered past mean that he has the accessibility to do this? And we found those answers to be no.
Noah actually had an alibi where he was with another woman.
When it comes to Tiffany's ex-boyfriend, Walter Knight, however, police are learning it's an entirely different ballgame.
The key factor in this is this protective order against him. Why would Tiffany do this? What were the challenges in this relationship that led her to feel not safe around him?
Noah had shared with law enforcement that Tiffany was concerned because previously Walter had overstepped the boundaries, entered the home, and also threatened her because she was entertaining other men.
You have to understand that it was Walter's house that Tiffany was in, and so Walter, from our understanding, he didn't like that.
When police confront Walter with these accusations, they're shocked to see he doesn't try to deny them.
He told me that he thought it was disrespectful that she had other men in the house going. They were still having sexual relationships.
From Walter's perspective, there was no clear boundaries. And in unhealthy relationships, often there is no clear boundaries. Walter felt that he was free to do what he wanted to do.
As Tiffany was working to remove herself from her current love relationship, she found refuge with Walter Knight.
Walter, he admits that we didn't always have the perfect relationship, but that doesn't mean that I would do anything to harm her. In fact, she came to me because I was her place of safety. And that's why she was with me the night before, and that's why I was concerned about not hearing from her.
But when police try to dig in more to his whereabouts that night, once again, Walter starts to shut down.
When we talked to him, where were you? You know, well, I was here. No, you wasn't. Well, okay, I wasn't. Well, where were you? I don't have to tell you that. Did he have to tell us for clarity's sake and for manpower's sake? Yeah, he absolutely should have told us. Every time we engaged this person, it was deception. And so from a police standpoint, you know, what does that look like for us, right? He got to be the guy.
That's when police offer Walter the same deal they made with Noah. Hand us your phone and let technology do the talking.
Walter, you know, he allowed us to extract his phone, to find out, you know, what kind of conversations that they were having, even where he was.
There's one data point in particular that's especially crucial in building Walter's timeline for police.
Walter's alibi was that in the middle of the night he endured some car trouble, and so he had to contact family members in order to provide transportation.
That cell phone information put him there. You know, if you're a savvy person, you know, everybody knows that the police does cell phones now, right? That's a thing, right? Now, everybody knows that, you know, you don't take your cell phone nowhere if you're getting ready to do something that you're not supposed to do. We started getting into his assets, his properties, to figure out what he owned, you know, doing title searches and stuff like that. So we were really scrambling and really trying to connect him to this case. And with the information that we had based on what he was giving us, I truly feel like had we presented a warrant for him, it would have gotten signed.
There's just one more piece of evidence the police need to build their case: DNA. But when the results of blood found at the scene come in, they bring disheartening news.
The DNA was not a match to Walter Knight or Noah Harding.
It's a big blow for investigators who've spent months building a case against Walter.
We were actually going after the wrong person, and it wasn't because we were trying to, you know, railroad him. It was because he had such a disdain for law enforcement, and you know, his position was, I don't have to tell you anything. And because he was so deceiving and untruthful, it was like, okay, he has to be the guy. The worst feeling in the world as a homicide detective, in my opinion, is to work a case and not being able to go to a person's family and say, we got the person that killed your baby. To let a case go cold with no leads is the worst feeling in the world.
5 months after Tiffany Hunter's murder, in February of 2018, an unexpected call promises to break the case wide open.
A few weeks after they are able to establish alibis, they get a tip.
We were in the office and Detective Clemens get a call.
The caller is saying he is very concerned about his daughter. He tells police that he's the father of Tiffany's youngest daughter, Martha. Martha has been devastated since her mother's death, but recently he learned that there is more to the story.
Martha had disclosed to her father that Amber had actually asked her to help kill her mother.
It's been 5 months since 41-year-old Tiffany Hunter was murdered inside her Detroit area home. Now, police may finally be on their way to getting some answers, after a man comes forward claiming his daughter Martha Ferguson knows the killer.
Martha's father contacted the police and disclosed that she was concerned that Tiffany actually was murdered by her daughter.
On February 17, 2018, Martha Ferguson and her father agree to meet with police and provide a statement.
He brings her in and she lays the whole thing out.
Amber wanted her mother out of her life. She was searching for someone to actually bring her mother to a demise.
Martha says that Amber had always butted heads with her mother, only 15 years apart in age. Amber sometimes felt like she had a peer when she wanted a parent. Amber had fallen into her mother's same path of getting pregnant at a young age, growing up too fast.
The relationship with her ex-husband, Carl, didn't work out. And at the same time, she needed support from her mom, but she didn't want to take her mom's advice.
Tiffany was always putting pressure on Amber to get a job, pull more weight in her relationship with her boyfriend, Carl, trying to push her daughter out of the nest a bit more, when Amber was feeling like she needed her mom more than ever.
She went through the motions. She got married to her baby father, Carl, and tried to accept this life as her own.
But it wasn't until Amber met her current husband, Javante Wakefield, that her family frustrations turned into fiery hatred.
Javante was someone she felt she could connect to. She felt understood for the first time.
Javante promised to take care of her, completely changed her world around. He was her dream come true.
But Martha says the more time Amber spent with Javante, the more her family began to notice a change in her personality.
They are all into each other. The love is something special. He'll do anything for her, she'll do anything for him. It's just that tight of a bond for them. They're all over social media, they're hugged up. Javante Wakefield may have bitten off a little more than he could chew in getting with Amber and adding to the family, because she comes to the table with 2 children. They have 2 more children together. He's under a tremendous amount of pressure now to take care of all of them. They are now a family of 6. Hard to do when you're underemployed in Mobile, Alabama, so he comes to Detroit looking for opportunity.
In the meantime, they all have to move in with Tiffany.
She felt like Amber should have taken more of an ownership role over her life, as opposed to living with her and having her now husband since 2014 living with her.
But when Tiffany was finally able to push Amber out on her own, Martha says that things only got worse.
There was financial instability, and that often caused conflict. But Amber and Javante did not feel like they had enough support within their family to make some changes. And so they isolated themselves and actually became more enmeshed with each other.
They are living in a state of squalor. They're just barely in a home. They're almost homeless. To add insult to injury, Amber's first husband, Carl, is looking to take his 2 children from Amber because he doesn't like the conditions that they're living in. Amber's mom, Tiffany, is siding with Carl.
She sought to have those children live with their father, their biological father. And Amber didn't like that at all. She didn't like that.
Martha tells police that Amber was convinced this was the happiest she had ever been. She couldn't risk having her mother take it all away.
Amber had let Martha know that she did not want her mother to actually participate in the investigation or the court procedures regarding her against her kids.
That's when Martha says Amber came up with a plan that could keep her family intact, just the way she wanted. According to Martha, Amber was under the impression her mom had a hefty life insurance policy.
Really, the motivation for the money was to please her spouse, Javante. Javante wanted the money.
I'm desperate. I know that Tiffany has a life insurance policy on her life, of which the beneficiary is going to be Amber, her first child. If something happens to Tiffany, then that may be the solution. That may be the answer to all our problems.
Amber tells Martha that she needs to get rid of Tiffany. It's the only way to get the financial freedom that her husband desperately wants. She does not want her mother to go to court to talk against her and Javante when it comes to the co-parenting.
Amber allegedly goes to Martha and asks Martha, does she know any shooters who can take Tiffany out?
But when Martha refused to have any part of it, Amber and Javante were convinced they could carry it all out themselves.
So Martha actually shares with the police investigators that Amber told her on September 9th that they were going to commit the crime.
Amber told Martha that Javante went in through the window of her mother's house, snapping a picture once he was safely inside.
He takes a selfie with a painting in the background that Amber knows is in Tiffany's house to show Amber that I am here and I'm waiting on her to get home.
It was a significant thing because it was in his phone, it was in the tablet, it was in the devices that they were communicating about that Amber's sister told us about. She said, hey, they communicating on tablets and phones through Facebook Messenger or whatever.
Police pull the phone records and find all Martha promised and more. On March 5th, 2018, they are ready to serve warrants to both Amber Hunter and her husband, Javante Wakefield. There's just one problem.
Unfortunately, they can't find Javante and Amber because they're on the run.
At this point, where we had a vision board in the office with Amber's picture on it, they said, I'm going to get you, fill in the blanks. That's what our focus was.
Thanks to a tip from Tiffany Hunter's youngest daughter, Martha, police finally have two clear suspects in their sights. Tiffany's oldest daughter, Amber Hunter, and her husband, Javante Wakefield.
Once we got the story from Martha, we started, obviously, it was like, okay, the flame is on now. We were at a simmer, and now we're on high.
The Detroit police, coupled with the FBI, zones in on Amber and Javante to bring them back into custody.
And we were getting information. She was paid out the insurance money from her mom's death. And we started running our cars. It just started coming together.
Soon, police are able to trace the couple miles outside of Detroit to Youngstown, Ohio.
They used that insurance money to start this bakery business in Youngstown. And ironically, that is how we found them. We were able to get on the phone with the authorities in Youngstown, and it just all started coming together. It was like watching a movie, for real. You know, it just all started, the pieces were falling in place.
Law enforcement followed the trail to Youngstown, Ohio, where they raid the home of Amber and Javante.
Javante and Amber, they don't put up a fight. They go peacefully. The jig is up. We've been found out. We were living the high life as a result of what we did, but the cost of what we did is about to come into fruition now.
On March 9th, 2018, Javante Wakefield and Amber Hunter are taken into custody and charged with the murder of Tiffany Hunter.
Obviously, we went in and we confiscated all electronic devices because we had got the information from Martha that they were communicating over the electronic devices and Facebook. Detective Clemens and I, we found this letter. The letter was an apology letter to Tiffany saying that I'm sorry for what I did.
But when police bring Javante in for an interview back at the station, he's not as quick to take the blame.
Like I said, then I'm telling you now, I had nothing to do with it or have nothing to hide.
He was just kind of like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. What about the text messages you guys were doing, or the Facebook and that kind of stuff? What text messages? There was some communication between you guys two folks.
I mean, of course, me and her were married, so we're going to text.
No, I understand that. And there's some pictures, you know? Some of this is ringing a bell.
Pictures?
Yeah, when you were inside the house at Tiffany's house.
What pictures, though?
His position was prove it. I didn't do it. And he stayed there. That was his position.
Can I see my lawyer?
Yeah, if you want to talk to your attorney, I'm done. We can't talk. You know that, right? Okay. Nope, I appreciate it.
As Javante lawyers up and effectively ends communication with police, investigators turn their attention to Amber.
She was very smiley, really nonchalant, kind of like, yeah, I hear you, but no. Politely telling me no, as if she had it all figured out. I probably got about maybe 10 questions in, you know, or who's Tiffany Hunter to you? My mom. What's your relationship to Javante? My husband. How long y'all been married? You know, just some general stuff, right? And just before I could get into the meat of it, she was like, yeah, I don't want to talk no more. I want a lawyer.
But when the couple hears their charges announced for the first time in court days later, suddenly, Amber is ready to change her tune.
Then it was like, yeah, this is real.
Amber entered into a plea offer, which was 25 years to 50 years. That's a reduction in the charge from a first-degree murder to a second-degree murder.
A plea agreement, you get to talk to the prosecutor and you get to have your come to Jesus moment, and you get to say whatever it is without any further penalty. So the prosecutor will say, okay, I'll give you this, but you gotta tell me the truth as to what happens.
During the preparation of the plea agreement, Amber disclosed to investigators that Javante was the mastermind and actually correlated him with the crime.
She's literally throwing Javante under the bus. This was his plan to get my mother's insurance proceeds because of the conditions that we were in. This was all his idea, not mine, his idea.
Amber goes along with Javante's plan because she loves him so much and she feels killing her mother is the only way that they can stay together. Amber doesn't hate her mom. She's motivated by her obsession with Javante and the fact that she does not want to lose him.
That night, Javante climbed in through a window of the home. Then he proceeded to wait for Tiffany to get home.
Tiffany was with Walter. When she left him, she comes home. And Javante strikes her in the back of the head with a hammer. When you're in a rage or when you are uncontrollably doing so, I mean, yeah, 69 times is plausible.
He's in such an adrenaline rush that he didn't realize he cut himself in the process and that he's left DNA all over the crime scene.
Amber says that after he did the murder, he got on the bus. And on the way to the bus, he threw the hammer away. He kept the clothes and put them in bags and got rid of them. You know, he destroyed the evidence. This is what she's saying.
On January 17th, 2019, Amber Hunter pleads guilty to second-degree murder and is sentenced to 25 to 50 years in prison.
Once Javante was faced with the reality of the impact of the legal system, he realized that he was not able to actually beat the case because Amber identified him as the mastermind, and he decided to take the plea agreement himself.
More than 2 years later, in April 2022, Javante Wakefield finally accepted a second-degree murder plea as well.
You never really know what really happened. You just, it's always, we call it a three-sided coin. It's Amber's version, it's Javante's version, and then there's the truth.
Javante and Amber actually echoed each other's attitude and behaviors. Even though that they were problematic, both of them encouraged each other and influenced each other to commit the crime.
This was one of those cases where communication would have solved this, but because nobody knew how to communicate in this case, it ended up in the death of Tiffany Hunter. I think if everybody knew how to convey and respect the feelings of everybody else or each other, she would still be here.
What's so unfortunate about this case is that Tiffany never gets to realize her comeback story. All of Tiffany's dreams and aspirations died on that day.
I just want people to know that my father was a person. He had a beating heart. His murder affected everything that happened in my life after that. Everything.
It clearly was a very, very violent scene and nobody deserved to die that way.
People don't know how to forgive. When someone becomes obsessed with what to do with how they feel, the negative emotion that they feel, it becomes anger, it becomes rage.
I was not going to let that go about what happened to my father because I couldn't move on. What you do in the dark will always come to the light, always.
February 27th, 1995, Baltimore, Maryland. It's early afternoon when a cable TV technician goes to the home of a new customer.
When the cable technician showed up, the door was open. She let herself in. And she wished that she hadn't. She saw that there was a man on the couch inside the apartment who was slumped over. She feared that he was dead. There was blood everywhere, on the walls, on his body.
The technician rushes to call 911.
And shortly thereafter, the EMTs and police showed up to the scene. It was immediately clear to EMTs that this victim had suffered severe injuries which ended his life. His head had been brutally smashed in with blood and brain matter everywhere. They actually couldn't tell if the damage was as a result of blunt force trauma or a gunshot wound.
When the police enter the apartment, they're able to do a quick scan and they find his wallet. And with that, they were able to confirm that the victim was in fact Leroy Lincoln Sr.
Leroy Lincoln Sr. was born in Baltimore, Maryland.
He was raised on Holland Street, which is in South Baltimore, known as Pigtown. He did have 2 other brothers, and he had 2 other sisters. He had somewhat of a strict background as well. His mother was a Jehovah's Witness, and she did her best to bring up her kids as witnesses as well. Some of them stayed with the religion, and some of them strayed with it. My father was one that was kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Leroy was known as someone who was fun. He was fun-loving, he laughed, he played, he joked. The people who knew Leroy and spent time with him really enjoyed being around him.
In the 1960s, Leroy's easygoing charm and quick wit caught the attention of a woman named Geraldine Parks.
My mother, she's from Trap Hill, North Carolina. She is also one of a large family. She was raised in a country where you're waking up with roosters crowing. Totally different than my father's background. He was born in the city.
Geraldine had been married as a teenager, but that relationship ended shortly after the birth of her daughter. When she met Leroy on a trip to Baltimore, she saw a chance to make a fresh start.
She wanted to be free. She wanted to experience life. At the time, she did have 1 child, but she just wanted to get away. And my father kind of represented an exciting life in Baltimore. My mother told me that she loved the way my father made her laugh. He was a natural comedian, and she was looking for a good laugh, someone that could make her feel a certain way, and he fulfilled that. So she moved to Baltimore to be with him, but she found out she was also pregnant by him, which led to my other sister being born.
Over the next decade, Leroy and Geraldine's family continued to grow.
I have 2 older sisters, then it's me, and then I have 2 younger sisters and 2 younger brothers.
Leroy and Geraldine, they had the American dream. Everything was good for them. They built a life together, with Leroy having a job at the MTA and Geraldine being at home with the kids.
Leroy continued to stray from some of the teachings of his Jehovah's Witness faith. And at first, Geraldine was all for it.
They used to be the party house, how much fun they used to have. Everybody from the neighborhood would be there. They used to have a great time.
There was always alcohol flowing, weed in the background. This was back in the 70s. It was just live. We had the party house.
Then, in the late 70s, the Lincoln family suffered a tragedy that would change all of their lives.
When Geraldine gave birth to their 7th child, the child was born, stillborn, and that really devastated her.
My mother went into this deep depression. She saw no way out. My father's mother pulled my mother to the side and told her, you know, you're gonna see him again one day. You know, and she started telling her about the promise of a new order, the promise of a resurrection. Once you turn your life over to Jehovah, your loved ones will be brought back to life. And my mother held fast to that deeply. She started going to the hall, started dedicating her life to Jehovah, becoming a Jehovah's Witness. And she gave my father the ultimatum, this is what you're gonna have to do, otherwise we can't be together. And my father loved her, he wanted to be with her. My father kind of got back into it, and they realized that they felt like they were living in sin. So they both got baptized and they got married and started living their lives as Jehovah's Witnesses.
Her dad was more of the laid-back kind of guy. I think he didn't really care so much about the faith. But for her mom, it was everything. And it ruled their household. Can't do this, you can't do that. You can't associate with this person or that one.
We went from being a party house to every Sundays, every Tuesdays, every Thursdays, we in the Kingdom Hall. We couldn't drink no more. You can't be around people that's smoking no more.
This was a challenge for Leroy. He was doing this for her, and he wasn't quite ready to adjust at the speed that she was.
Things started becoming challenging. My father wasn't having it no more. He was not having it anymore. My father had a problem with smoking cigarettes. He couldn't stop smoking. So they kicked him out of the hall because of that. You know, they kicked him out of the religion.
While smoking was prohibited, divorce was also forbidden. So Geraldine tried to keep the marriage going, but still followed the religion's rules of disfellowshipped former members.
When you're disfellowshipped in the Jehovah's Witness congregation, you're basically shunned. Nobody can talk to you. If they talk to you, then they're gonna be shunned as well. My mother couldn't speak to him no more. We as kids couldn't even speak to him anymore. He lives in the same house. We can't say, hi, Daddy, what you want for breakfast? None of that.
I think he just felt alienated. He did feel like a stranger in his own house.
I can imagine that must have sent him into a really, really dark place, which wouldn't have helped his addiction to alcohol and cigarettes.
According to his loved ones, Leroy turned to other vices as well.
He was unable to get his needs met, intimacy, closeness, all of those things were removed from him. And so he started to seek for those things elsewhere. Leroy was in and out of different relationships with other women, cheating. He would leave the house and eventually come back.
I think it took Geraldine so long to consider divorce is because it is a huge sin in most faiths and most religions to get a divorce. I think that was probably her last resort.
In January 1995, the couple realized they've had enough, despite Geraldine's faith. She kept their children and their home, and Leroy moved into an apartment.
I think Tia's dad wanted his family. You know, it seems like he was a good father. I always felt that he still tried to maintain relationships with his kids.
Now, 1 month after he moved out, Leroy is dead at just 51 years old, and Baltimore police want to know why, and if his lifestyle had something to do with it.
Once my father left the Jehovah's Witness religion, he started doing his own thing. He got another girlfriend. He got with friends who did drugs. He started smoking weed. That weed led to other drugs. Jehovah's Witnesses will call it the wrong crowd. And they will say that he started hanging with people who, well, there was a scripture, 1 Corinthians 15:33. Basically, that was drilled in our heads that bad associations spoil useful habits.
"51-year-old Leroy Lincoln Sr. has been found murdered in his apartment, and authorities are looking for clues. The damage to his skull is so severe, they can't even tell yet if he was shot or beaten to death.
Because the victim's wallet and cash were still there and there were no signs of forced entry, detectives ruled out burglary as a possible motive for the murder.
And there was no murder weapon at the scene. They didn't find any fingerprints, they didn't find any DNA, everything was spotless.
Detectives do find something else, however.
There was drug paraphernalia that was found in the home. There was crack cocaine.
They find a pipe, and they also find a partially smoked joint.
The police went around to ask questions of the neighbors, but he lived in the hood in Baltimore, so nobody saw anything.
That's not uncommon for people to really not want to get involved or say anything to the police. However, one neighbor does recall hearing some strange things the night before. It sounded like someone was knocking on Leroy's door late the other night. Shortly after he heard the knocking, he heard the TV come on, and then he heard some type of commotion happening. At the time, he didn't think much of it. He thought maybe Leroy's just a night owl, but now he's having thoughts of whether or not he heard the murder.
Unfortunately, Leroy's neighbor couldn't provide any useful details. To investigators, the drug paraphernalia suggests a scenario that's become all too common in the area.
In the 1990s, Baltimore was really known for high crime rates. In fact, it was higher than the national average. Baltimore was averaging about 300 murders a year in the 90s.
Many of the crimes were shootings, fueled by a cycle of revenge.
They were drug shootings. You sold on my turf. You killed my brother. You killed someone in my family. You stole my drug pipeline. It's a never ending in that manner until we find a way to solve the drug problem.
Leroy's murder is the 44th in Baltimore that year, and it's only the end of February. His daughter, Tia, learns about it that evening.
I was doing laundry, watching the news like I always do. The headline of the news was there was a homicide in East Northern Parkway. They said the victim was a former MTA bus driver. I was like, what? So I stopped what I was doing and I called my father's phone. No answer, no answer, no answer. I'm blowing it up, no answer.
When someone does finally answer Leroy's phone, it's a homicide detective.
And I said, look, is my father there? Is my father there? What is going on? He said that my father was killed. I lost it. I fell to the floor, I screamed, I cried, and all of that. When I got myself together, I asked him, I said, are you sure, was this like a mistake? I said, look, my father had no enemies. He was a jokester. He don't go around robbing drug dealers. He don't go around beating people up. I was just trying to digest the fact that he had just been murdered. I didn't immediately think that it was anybody. I was just like, who would do it?
Investigators are asking the same question. And now that they are in contact with family, they speak with more loved ones. They begin with Geraldine.
She denied actually being there or obviously laying a finger on him.
She swore that she had nothing to do with his murder and that she was home with her daughter that night.
However, she admits she's never forgiven Leroy for his shortcomings.
She let detectives know that they were going through a divorce and that he had cheated on her multiple times and that they were not in a good place with each other. Geraldine disclosed to police that Leroy had been smoking crack for years and that this was one of the key points that caused their separation. She wouldn't be surprised that some of the drug connections that he has is probably the cause of his murder. She claimed that it was possible that one of the women that he had cheated with was responsible, or one of the boyfriends or husbands of those women could have been responsible for his murder. The police also speak to the couple's 18-year-old son, who was still living at the house with his mother. Leroy Lincoln Jr. confirms the story about his father's drug addiction. He also has an alibi for the night of the murder.
Authorities hope the autopsy will reveal a fresh avenue of investigation.
The medical examiner's autopsy report sheds a little more light on the case. They determined that the cause of death was blunt force trauma. The beating was so severe that it had shattered Leroy's skull into pieces. Whoever killed him seemed to take out a lot of pent-up rage. Given the past stories of drug problems with Leroy Lincoln Sr., it is not out of the question that someone who he had been involved with in that life is responsible for his murder. Unfortunately, investigators have no suspects in the case.
Tia worries her father's murder will become another unsolved case in a city overwhelmed with violent crime.
To be honest with you, in the city of Baltimore, you lose a family member, that's it. Investigations, 50% of them are not even solved. I was expected to just pick up and just move forward and live my life. But after he was killed, we had to plan a funeral.
Leroy was quite a beloved member of his community and was very well liked by many people around the city. But people noticed that not everyone is upset about his murder.
When friends and loved ones gather at the funeral of Leroy Lincoln Sr., it quickly becomes clear that Leroy's widow, Geraldine, still bears a grudge.
My mother insisted that that casket stay open. She wanted everybody to see what had happened to him. The funeral director said the only way we can do this open casket, somebody gotta buy him a hat or something because there's no head here. So my fiance went to the store and bought him a skull cap.
The funeral home actually has to ask a pastor who was there for another funeral to come over and lead the celebration for Leroy's life.
But my mother deliberately told the officiant that she didn't want anybody to speak over him. She didn't want anybody to say anything nice about him. I was sitting there in tears like, this is really going down like this? After the viewing, my mother decided that my father was going to be cremated as soon as possible. She didn't want a tombstone or anything like that. She didn't care what they did with his ashes. She told them to flush him down the toilet. To this day, I don't know where they are. My father doesn't have a tombstone. Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in going to grave sites like that anyway, but I always wanted that to do, at least for Father's Day or birthday or something, but nothing. I kind of do regret not speaking up on requesting his ashes because he deserved better than that.
To Tia Lincoln, her mother's behavior isn't just strange, it's suspicious.
I had a nagging feeling that something wasn't right, but I was trying to swallow that away, trying to ignore it.
But Geraldine's actions are difficult to ignore.
About a week after Leroy Sr.'s murder, Geraldine moves back to North Carolina with her daughter and her son, Leroy Jr. This is odd because she had just moved into the home about a month ago.
Her lease wasn't up or anything, and she just left so quickly after he was murdered. Why did that happen?
As the months pass, Tia is increasingly bothered by her mother's actions and inaction.
Why did you not ever call the police to try to investigate to figure out what happened to him? I understand y'all were going through a divorce, but damn, nothing? She never did any of that?
Unfortunately, Tia seems to be the only member of the family still interested in pursuing the case, and detectives are unable to find any proof of her suspicions.
There was no forensic evidence developed in this case. DNA only occurs mainly if someone spits on you or has sex with you. This is not the type of case.
It was a low probability of the case ever being solved. After about a year, the police department shelved the case, and eventually it was considered an unsolved murder, then transitioned into a cold case.
That pissed me off, and that's when I was just like, look, something got to be done. Otherwise, I can't move on with my life.
She was really very sad and heartbroken about her father's death. It wasn't as a thing where you could see her going in the corner and crying. It was more like, yo, I want to know what happened to my dad.
She didn't want to accept what police had to say, and she was really frustrated with Baltimore police.
I had to figure out what had happened to my father. So after I got myself together and I started playing things in my head, I wanted the detectives to conduct a thorough investigation, and that means questioning everybody in his family, including my mother, Geraldine.
These dishes just aren't getting clean.
The problem isn't your machine. It's likely your detergent.
Really?
Really. I recommend switching to Cascade Platinum Plus. These new pods dissolve completely, releasing more soaking, scrubbing, and rinsing action. Plus, the grease-fighting power of Dawn, breaking down up to 100% of tough, stuck-on foods.
That's impressive.
And it works so well, it even keeps your filter clean. Cascade. Roto-Rooter recommended, safe for pipes.
Why is Special K so special? The multigrain flakes? Oh, right, I see, it's the real fruit. Oh, wait, can you go back to the berries? Special K, special for a reason.
Whoa, it's the Capital One Bank guy. That's me. Could we get a selfie? Of course. Say no fees or minimums on your Capital One checking account. Ooh, that's a keeper.
So, what do you do outside of the Capital One Cafe?
What do you mean?
Like when you go home or...
Sleep tight. Don't let the overdraft fees bite. What's in your wallet?
I've been waiting for you, Obi-Wan. We meet it again.
Strengthen your hair and protect from heat damage with Cream of Nature Leave-In Conditioner. Cream of Nature. Unstoppable hair.
No application fee if you apply by September 3rd at University of Maryland Global Campus, an accredited university that has transformed adult lives for more than 75 years. You're not waiting to win. You're ready to succeed again at umgc.edu.
I thought weight loss was all about willpower.
Turns out, I just needed more options.
The new Weight Watchers, with access to prescription weight loss medication, one-on-one dietitian support, and our clinically proven points program. Join now at WeightWatchers.com.
When the anniversary of Leroy Lincoln Sr.'s murder passes without any new leads, his daughter, Tia Lincoln, decides to act.
After it seemed like nothing was being done, a year later, I started to investigate the case on my own. I didn't have money to hire an investigator. I started talking to his friends, trying to see if he had any enemies. I started talking to his former girlfriends to see if they had any hidden agendas or vendettas against him or anything like that. Everything just kept leading back to a feeling that I kept trying to swallow, kept trying to ignore. It just kept coming back to mama, maybe she had something to do with it.
The first red flag was Geraldine's handling of Leroy's funeral and her abrupt move back to North Carolina. The second comes when she returns to collect his insurance money.
When my father was killed, even though they were going through a nasty, bitter divorce, she was still technically the beneficiary on his life insurance policies. She broke her neck to come up here to get his life insurance because the checks came to my house, but she wouldn't come up here for any other reason. That seemed suspicious. I think they only came up to about $60,000, and she was like, "Where's the rest? Where's the rest?" She was extremely pissed off about that. What happened was, we didn't find this out till later, he had stopped paying on it, so they had canceled that particular policy.
Geraldine also cautions Tia to stop bothering the police with her inquiries into Leroy Sr.'s murder. She says that Leroy was a dirtbag and deserved to get whatever he got.
I think her mom's hostility and this resentment that never showing sympathy or remorse about what happened to him, it created a bigger suspicion.
That suspicion ultimately unlocks a crucial memory Tia first thought was a joke.
We were raised to believe that Daddy does not care about us. Daddy cares about his drugs more than he cares about us. He cares about his other girlfriends more than he cares about us. So we grew up with huge animosity towards him. My mother would always constantly, these weren't jokes. You know, I just wish somebody would take him out.
She remembered hearing her mother say that she wished that someone would kill Leroy Sr.
My father only had one person that hated him, hated his entire being, and that was my mother.
Tia summons the strength to confront her mother.
I flat out asked her, did you have anything to do with it? And of course she denied it. She said no, and she was really insistent this time, look, get over it, stop asking me that, move on.
Tia doesn't give up, but instead digs deeper. She doesn't think her mother would beat Leroy Sr. to death on her own.
I thought that if she was involved, who would she get to do her killing? One of the people that she would have had to recruit to do this would have had to have been my brother, Leroy Jr. And the reason why I say that is because they were close. I was going off of a hunch. I didn't know for sure.
A hunch isn't enough for Baltimore investigators to act on. And years continue to pass with no movement on the case.
After 7 years, I finally came up with a plan to get the detectives to, at the very least, question somebody.
She got to a place of desperation where she didn't see any way out, and she needed answers. So she decided to do the only thing that she thought she could do.
I knew that at the time that my brother had a girlfriend who had a drug problem, and I also knew that she had been in and out of jail. So I was gonna play like I was her. So I went to a payphone, I called the detectives, disguised my voice, and told them that I had information about an unsolved homicide. They were like, well, what information do you want to provide? And I said, my boyfriend did it. I said, he came in the house and he said he killed his father. He had blood on his clothes. I said that, you know, I was dying of AIDS. I wanted to clear my conscience. I didn't leave a name though.
That was a huge, huge risk, but it did pay off. It forced the police department to take her father's case seriously. Had Tia not made that call, she would have never found out what happened to her dad.
Acting on Tia Lincoln's false tip about the murder of her father, Leroy Lincoln Sr., authorities tracked down Leroy Jr.'s former girlfriend.
Detectives go right over there, but she seems surprised to see them. She says that she never made that call, but the details of the call are actually true. She tells police that she did overhear a conversation between her then boyfriend, Leroy Jr., and his mother, Geraldine Lincoln. They were discussing having Leroy Sr. murdered.
The girlfriend's story about the night Leroy Sr. was killed actually matches a detail Tia had made up when she called investigators, and reveals a third conspirator.
She said that my brother came in the house with blood on his clothes and confessed to killing his father with his friend John.
Leroy Jr., he had a best friend named John Cross, who he grew up with, and John came with a pretty lengthy criminal record himself. So it makes sense that if Leroy was going to do something like this, he would definitely bring someone like John along with him.
For the first time in 7 years, Baltimore police have a solid lead. They ask North Carolina police to pick up Geraldine Lincoln and her son Leroy Jr. and hold them for questioning. And locally, they begin searching for Leroy Jr.'s alleged accomplice.
He was serving time away on a burglary charge. They went to his cell and everything, and they questioned him about a murder. He was like, I don't know none of them. I don't know nothing about anything.
After getting nothing from John Cross, detectives traveled to North Carolina to interview Geraldine and Leroy Jr.
When they accuse her of being the mastermind behind her husband's murder, she denies having anything to do with it. What she does say is that it doesn't matter who killed her husband because he deserved it.
The detective said she went into a 6-minute rant of how bad he was. You know, he was this, he was that, he was disgusting, he was blah, blah, blah.
The way Geraldine Lincoln described her husband was not pleasant. I believe he used drugs. He may have used drugs in the presence of his children. I do know there are allegations that he molested his daughters.
According to Geraldine, what happened to him was payback for all of the pain that he inflicted on others.
But who delivered that payback? Investigators turn up the pressure by showing Geraldine 3 incriminating photos.
The first is a photo of Leroy Jr. The caption reads, "That's Junior, whose father he and I killed for Miss Geraldine." It's signed John Cross. The second photo is of John Cross, and this one too has a caption. This is John. Junior said he hit Junior's father over the head while they smoked weed. This photo seemed to be signed by Junior's girlfriend. The third photo is of Geraldine, and on the back of this photo it says, "This is Miss Geraldine. She set up the murder of Junior's dad." It was dated the same date as the photos that were signed by John Cross.
There was a little bit of deception because they were not written by the actual witnesses or suspects. They were written by the detective. That said, what they wrote were facts that were already proven by the investigation so far.
The ruse works. After years of denial, Geraldine finally breaks.
When confronted with those photos, Geraldine Lincoln eventually admitted that she wanted her husband, decedent Leroy Lincoln Sr., murdered, and admitted a degree of participation in that she wanted him dead.
She's like, yeah, I knew about the murder. Yeah, I knew that they killed him. Yeah, they got the axe out of my house. She said, well, how is that a crime? What did I do wrong? Just because I didn't say anything? Just because I didn't stop them? And just because I talked about it for years and pumped their heads up to do it, I didn't do anything wrong.
She was charged with first-degree murder because she wanted it to happen, planned it, and solicited people to do it. She was also charged with conspiracy.
Investigators try the same approach with Leroy Jr., but he doesn't take the bait.
The game that the detectives played failed. Even after seeing the photos, he still denied that he had anything to do with his father's death. But then the investigators tried their last trick. They got a tape recorder and played parts of their interview with Leroy's mother. Those clips had been edited to make it sound like Geraldine had implicated her son in the murder of his father.
Once they played him that tape, he put his head on the table and was just like, all right, I'm gonna tell you everything you wanna know.
He claimed that he had been physically and psychologically abused by his father, and that his father would beat all of the children with extension cords and other things that he found around the house. Leroy Jr. even suggested that his father had forced him and his brother to sell crack cocaine. Leroy Jr. believed that his father had been trying to destroy their family for years, and that by February 1995, it was time for his father to pay for his evil deeds.
After helping his mother, Geraldine Lincoln, cover up the murder of his father for over 7 years, Leroy Lincoln Jr. is now ready to confess everything.
Leroy tells police that he, his mother, and John Cross had been plotting to kill his father for months. The night of the murder, Leroy Jr. said that he and John met at Jerlene's house. They got the handle from an axe that she had lying around, and they went over to Leroy Sr.'s house. When they got there, they knocked on the door, and Sr. let them in. They led him to believe that they were there to smoke marijuana and watch TV with him.
They were sitting there drinking and smoking 1 minute, and he said that he looked over at John. They made eye contact, and he said that John had acted like he was gonna go to the bathroom or something, and he could see out of the corner of his eye that John had the axe like this. And he said he hit my father with the axe.
Leroy Jr. says that after the murder was completed, that John set his father's body back on the couch and they left. But obviously they hadn't closed the door on their way out. Leroy Jr. says that he dropped John off at his house before he went back to his own home, where he told his girlfriend what had happened.
Geraldine Lincoln, Leroy Lincoln Jr., and John Cross are all charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder.
In late 2003, Leroy Jr. is the first to be tried in his father's murder. The prosecution's case is depending upon the testimony of his ex-girlfriend and his own taped confession. The defense team argues that Leroy Jr. never had anything to do with his father's murder and that his confession was coerced. They painted Leroy Sr. as an evil man who was addicted to drugs, who forced his children to sell drugs, and who was physically, mentally, and sometimes sexually abusive.
But there is no evidence whatsoever to prove Leroy Sr. was abusive.
I'm just gonna say, look, he never touched me. He never acted like he wanted to touch me. I mean, he never looked at me like he wanted to touch me. But that rumor was spread throughout our family, and that was part of the reasons why we were groomed to hate him.
Tia takes the stand for the prosecution.
Lincoln, Tia Lincoln.
And do you have a brother named Leroy Lincoln?
Yes.
What, if anything, did defendant Leroy Lincoln Jr. say he wanted to do to his father, your father?
He didn't say, okay, I want to kill him. You know, it was more so of him being around, you know, when the conversations were being talked about, you know, as far as my mother, and I can't remember him specifically saying, okay, well, I want to kill him, you know.
The defense tries to pin the murder on Geraldine, arguing only she wanted Leroy Sr. dead.
How many times would you say altogether your mother brought up the same subject, wanting to get the father out of the way, be nice to get the money, get him out of my life, get to myself, whatever she was saying? How many different times did that same tape come up?
Over 15.
Over 50 times?
Over 50.
On September 25th, 2003, the jury reaches a verdict.
They find Leroy Lincoln Jr. guilty of the conspiracy to commit murder, but they acquit him of the first-degree murder charge. He's sentenced to life in prison with all but 25 years suspended.
I mean, my brother, he had no remorse from it. He was not sorry for it. I even asked him that, are you sorry? Do you regret it? No, not at all.
A week later, Geraldine opts for a bench trial, which means she only faces a judge, not a jury.
She was charged with first-degree murder, even though she didn't lay a finger on the victim. I had to know, I had to dot all the I's, cross all the T's. I had put on all those witnesses who heard them planning and talking about and wanting to kill Leroy Lincoln Sr. There's no direct evidence, no one saw her do it, no one said, please kill him, I'll pay you. But there was enough there to convict her of a conspiracy.
The court agrees. And on October 1st, 2003, Geraldine is found guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy. Like her son, she receives a life sentence. But the 2004 trial for their alleged co-conspirator, John Cross, yields a much different result.
Unfortunately, he was found not guilty by a city jury in Baltimore.
John was acquitted because, again, he had an excellent attorney, and also there was no physical evidence linking him to that crime, and also without eyewitness testimony of one of the murderers that was there was no case. He walked. Haven't heard from him since.
It was a cold case, which already has a high degree of difficulty in steering convictions. I'm still unhappy with the fact that we did not bring Mr. Cross to justice.